Welcome to the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast with me, Dave Roberts. This week, I'm delighted to welcome Amul Batra to the podcast, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Northcoders. Amul is passionate about educating junior software developers and then helping them to find roles with outstanding companies. Established just over 5 years ago now, Northcoders is the original coding bootcamp in the north of England, with campuses in both Manchester and Leeds. It's fantastic to have you with us here today, Amul.
Thanks a lot, Dave. It's great to be here. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks, Amul. I'm really looking forward to this podcast today. So I know you've got quite a diverse career background. So how did you first become involved with Northcoders?
It's a really good question, actually. So prior to Northcoders, I spent 20 years in the music business, managing bands, running a record label, touring the world, having lots of great things happen in the music industry. The label had a #1 record, which was great. It's a small independent label in Manchester. And I just got to the stage of my career with the music side where I just had my first child and I didn't want to be out at gigs every night. I kind of wanted to do something a little bit more steady. And I just discovered tech, actually, through a bit of the sharing economy. I'd looked at platforms and marketplaces like Airbnb and eBay and kind of more recently sort of Etsy and thought, this is really cool. You can kind of like create this industry using technology. And I'd had a couple of startup ideas myself, one to do with knowledge sharing. It was called Wisespoke, but we never really took it to market because I don't think the world was ready for it yet. One to do with music IP and coming up with a way for the average music fan to be able to perhaps own a piece of an artist's royalty or a songwriter's royalty. Again, I think I was too early. But both of those ideas made me sort of start looking at how you find the people to build these things. Where do you find a developer? Where do you find a technical co-founder? And whilst I was doing all this research, a really close friend of mine who had set up a successful startup in London had turned around and said to me, Amul, why don't you learn how to code? And my first reaction to him, my gut reaction was, Phil, don't be so stupid. I'm 40 this year. There's no way I'm going to be able to pick up a hard skill like coding at my age. And that was that. But it kind of stuck with me. And I did some searching around in Manchester about sort of coding, places to learn to code and stuff. And I couldn't find anything. And one of the internet searches led me to a particular meetup, a meetup called Code Up in Manchester. And it just happened to be that night. So I went along, got in, and there was this guy just telling the room about this new coding school that he was opening, Northcoders, and that it was be running its first course in about a month. And does anyone want to join? And I was like, well, I don't know the first thing about what code is. I understand that obviously you need techies to build software, to build products, but I never really sort of saw myself as that person. But I chatted to Chris, my now business partner, and he talked me into thinking about doing the course. He said, look, if you do the course, we can show you how to code, and maybe sort of, in the project phase towards the end, we can maybe help build one of these ideas that you've got. And I was like, okay, fine. And he gave me some materials to learn. And I went off and learned them, didn't really understand them, but somehow managed to pass the entry challenge, which was pretty basic back in the day of the first ever Northcoders cohort, and started the course. There were 10 of us on that first bootcamp. And I wasn't very good, I'm not going to lie. I kind of understood the concepts, but wasn't particularly fast at the coding. But I got to know the two founders really well, and I just fell in love with this mission, this business idea, this plan to really equip people in the North with the really required skills that the businesses were telling them that they needed. And I mean, to cut a long story short, 9 of the 10 people that were on that first bootcamp got jobs in technology, and I was asked to join the Northcoders senior leadership team, and the money I'd set aside to invest in one of these startup ideas, I invested in Northcoders themselves, and the rest is history.
What a fantastic journey. That's awesome. Absolutely fantastic. So what sort of courses do you offer students at Northcoders, and what are the most sort of popular courses that people are doing at the moment?
So we've only really offered one course through our sort of 5-year history. It's not entirely true, but if we just talk about that. So it's a coding bootcamp. It's for people who want to become software developers and don't want to go back to university. And it lasts 13 weeks. And what it does is it takes someone through the journey of being someone who's interested in tech into becoming a full stack software developer, software engineer, I should say. But I've made it sound very easy, and trust me, it's not easy at all. It's when I did the course, and everyone that I speak to that's done the course will turn around and say it's one of the most mentally challenging things they've ever done. I certainly felt it. And you can't just say you want to do the course. Actually, we verify whether someone is genuinely interested in doing the course and whether we think they're going to get an outcome from it. So I mentioned earlier on that there's some preparation materials that we give everyone who applies. So there's no prerequisite to applying. There's no career background. I mean, the only thing that you need to be an adult to do our course. You need to be 18. That's the only prerequisite. We send out these preparation materials, which is like a mini introduction to code packs, about 20 hours worth of work. Then those materials aren't designed to be hard. They're designed to get people into wanting to be a software developer, into solving problems that you would in once you become a software developer. They're designed to be engaging, but you've got to enjoy it, and you've got to do the work, and you've got to complete the pack. And at the end of the pack, anyone that still wants to kind of do Northcoders has to pass an entry challenge, which are loosely based on those preparation materials. But it's not just a tick box exercise. It isn't just you finish the preparation materials, so you'll therefore get on the course. It really is a sense that, we need people to be thinking outside of the box. And so once they pass that entry challenge, they will enroll on the course. But to give you an idea of kind of how that really works, it's about 1/3 of the people that apply to Northcoders that eventually start one of our boot camps. And that's because people might apply, not expect these preparation materials, or they might look at them and say, well, actually, genuinely, I don't have the time, or they might start doing those materials and they decide they don't like it, or they might not pass the entry challenge. And all of those reasons are absolutely fine for us because it's so mentally challenging, the course. We don't really want to take people through that 13-week journey if they don't feel it's right for themselves, or they don't think that they can do it. It's not for everybody. And if they don't pass the entry challenge, it might not be the right fit for them. And we'd much rather figure out who the course would be right for before they invest in, what is quite an expensive course. But obviously the outcomes are, on the other side, pretty good.
So after that 13-week period, what qualifications do the students come out at the end?
So over the years, there is no qualification. And I've always said there's no better qualification than a piece of paper that promises to put a certain amount of money in your bank every month, i.e. a job. We've traditionally shied away from kind of certifications. There is a caveat, and I'll come back to that in a second. But essentially, what we do in lieu of a qualification is we help people find their first job as a software developer. And one of the reasons why we've shied away from the certification is because technology moves so fast. We want to be able to change what we teach and how we teach it to suit what the industry needs. And a lot of the qualifications and certifications require you to be a little bit more rigid than that. Because our results have been as good as they have been over the years, we've always felt that the certification might hamstring us a little bit. So to talk about kind of the career kind of outcomes for someone that's done Northcoders. So we're about to graduate our 900th person in that 5-year period, end of September. And 95% of those get a job as a software developer, generally a junior or foundation, or what different companies call them different things. And they've gone on to work with over 250 companies for their first role, mainly in the north, but obviously through the pandemic, geography and maps are changing for where people go and get these jobs. And for that was as much as we ever needed. As I said, there were 9 out of 10 on the first course got an outcome in technology. And that's pretty much continued over the years as we've scaled and scaled and scaled.
So as the skill sets change to your point just before, how's Northcoders helping the students prepare for the sort of new era of cloud-based skill sets?
Um, so, if I were to sort of sum up what Northcoders does in a couple of sentences, the first thing is we don't teach people to code. We teach people to teach themselves to code. It's quite a departure from the kind of general academic learning that most people who come to Northcoders have had experience of, that most people have, because what we try and do is make sure that we don't just show people how stuff works in technology. We get under the hood and show them why it works, so that we spend the first 3/4 of the course teaching a tech stack. But we're also using that tech stack as an example of how they would apply it to any other technology, language, framework. And that requires understanding the fundamental problems that everyone is solving. And absolutely within the remit of that is making sure that everyone who does Northcoders not only can teach themselves to code. So if they finish Northcoders and they, our example tech stack is very JavaScript heavy and using Node and Express and PostgreSQL and React, but they might go into a job in C# or in Java or in Ruby or in Python. But they've understand the basics of one language, and they've understood how they've learned that language. And it's the same with cloud, really. Our formal teaching around cloud during the bootcamp is very much around Heroku and very simple deployment. But by the time they get onto the final part of the course, which is project phase, the students get put into teams, and teams have to create a project. The rule is they're not allowed to use the entire tech stack that we have taught them. And they have to come up with a tech stack that matches their product idea. And at which point they will often go and start looking into kind of a variety of deployment options, be it GCP, be it AWS, be it Azure. They'll often do mobile apps, and we don't teach mobile apps on the course. They'll do it in React Native or in Flutter. But the idea is we've given them the technical ability to go and look at any kind of part of the landscape and go, well, how do I solve this? How do I read the documentations? How do I apply what I've been taught in one language and put it into another language or put it into another cloud deployment platform? But I guess I should also mention qualification aspect. We do have an apprenticeship company within Northcoders now. It's called Northcoders Tech Ed. And so we have turned some of what we do into an apprenticeship program, which does require certifications. So one of the courses we do is a level 4 software developer course, which turns the bootcamp into a 13, 14-month apprenticeship, so that companies can send their employees or prospective employees to learn and take advantage of apprenticeship funding. One of the extra add-ons you do if you do an apprenticeship course with us is a course called DevOps and Cloud. And within that course, we formally teach things like Docker, containerization, CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, infrastructure as code. And we also get people ready for an AWS certification. So, and we only support AWS at the moment, but the principles of AWS would apply to GCP and would apply to Azure as well. So we do have more formal instruction around it. It's a brilliant course, it's week long with some follow-on days for the AWS stuff. And as I said, it's available to businesses who want to send people on the apprenticeship program. It's called Reskill at the moment. Or businesses where we're starting to open it out to businesses to kind of purchase that course, because it's proven to be really invaluable for businesses to be able to upskill their members of staff in kind of cloud technologies.
That's great that you're offering that type of course as well. But thinking about the 13-week course, what's the typical cost for a student enrolling onto one of those Northcoder courses, and what's the average salary that they can probably expect when they complete the course?
So the cost of the bootcamp is £7,200 to an individual, or it's, if you're a company wanting to present someone on it as a 13-month apprenticeship program, then the level 4 software developer program is 18,000 through the levy. But the cost that individuals need to bear in mind is £7,200. The really good thing at the moment is DFE, the Department for Education, is running like a national pilot, and Northcoders has won a contract to provide 288 spaces across 5 different regions in the country to residents, where if they pass their entry challenge, they will get that course fully funded. And that runs to the end of March next year. So actually it is started August in some areas and September in other areas. And yeah, so if someone wants to do Northcoders as an individual and they apply and they get through the prep steps and entry challenge, the DFE will fund their place on the course. So it's completely free at the moment, if I'm to be totally honest. And in terms of starting salary, average salary over the years has been 25,000, both in terms of the most offered salary once a Northcoders completed the 13-week boot camp. And then, you know, over the years, we've watched people, we did a survey last year of about half our alumni, and we've watched people grow, and people will generally kind of move to kind of from junior developer positions to mid-level developer positions within sort of a year to 2 years, and the uplift would be towards 30, 35. And then we have people who are senior developers within 3 years and kind of earning 40 plus. And I know of certain people that are kind of earning 60, 70 grand. We've got people who are head of departments, head of engineering positions at a variety of companies. So we've only got a 5-year history, so I can only really talk about the levels they've reached after 5 years. But the career trajectory for Northcoders once they become developers in the real world is really good. And I think the reason why they move up the ladder so quickly is that whole ability to teach themselves to code, because they'll go into a company, they won't know a tech stack, they'll be able to pick up that tech stack really quickly because of the fundamental training we've given them on the course. And then by the time sort of a company brings these people on and they recognize those abilities, they tend to move up that ladder pretty quickly.
So if people want to find out more information about Northcoders, what should they do?
You can hit any of us up on LinkedIn. You can send an email to hello@northcoders.com, or it's just www.northcoders.com in terms of a website. But yeah, or, you know, I always say if you want to hit any of our alumni up on LinkedIn, they're generally happy to talk about sort of their experiences. We've got taster sessions if people want to try some of the learning. Again, the website will give anyone kind of help in sort of understanding kind of what we do. And, you know, a big part of Northcoders and a big part of why I invested at the beginning is this kind of mission, this commitment to diversity and inclusion. And that first cohort of 10 people, even though Northcoders was a startup, it had 4 women, 6 guys, but all women at that stage were given fully funded scholarships. And the founders knew and had this commitment to make sure that in order to solve the fact that the industry back in 2015-16, when we kind of first opened our doors, there weren't enough developers, and the developer pool wasn't very diverse. And the only way you could solve both of those things at the same time is by trying to open it up to a more diverse talent pool. And for us, that doesn't just mean gender, it means all kinds of things. So obviously ethnic background, age, kind of neurodiversity, you know, the BAME community and the LGBTQ plus community are really well represented at Northcoders. And that's because everything we've done, and we've done from day one, is to try and really open out this industry to not being something that you needed to go and be able to afford to go on a 4-year university degree to do. It's generally to say, well, actually, you can do this in 13 weeks. We've devised this really hard course, but really accessible course in terms of we don't care if you've got a GCSE or you haven't, or if you've done a PhD or you haven't. What we care about is your desire and ability to kind of get involved and get stuck in and enjoy it and turn yourself into a career-ready developer in as little as 13 weeks.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic that what Northcoders has been doing to add to the talent pool, certainly within the Northern Powerhouse as well. The importance of these skill sets is so important for us. So it's fantastic to, I hear that 900 people have graduated now from Northcoders. It's long may it continue, and looking forward to when we hit the thousands.
It won't be very long with the numbers that are coming through at the moment. But look, Dave, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about Northcoders. I've heard brilliant things about the podcast, and it's a real honour to be invited to be part of it.
Thank you, Amul. Thank you for taking part. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you.
Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for more inspiring tech leaders.